What's up, everyone? Daniel here with my Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer breakdown. Now, I've watched this trailer a million times. Okay, there's 10 million views on this Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer, and a million of them are from me. Okay, so, I mean, as many times as I've watched it, I've kind of started to pick out little things in there, and I've developed a theory on this trailer, and I'd like to share it with you. So, here's what I'm thinking. I think this trailer is actually sort of a prelude to Final Fantasy VII. These are the events that lead up to the final scene of the trailer where Barrett and Cloud are walking through the slums. And so let's get started. This may contain content inappropriate for children that are not of age to understand the hype of Final Fantasy VII. Okay? These are for the people that just never played the game, that need to play the game. Do it! Shia LaBeouf. Now, let's get started. Here we go. A bird flying through the clouds. Enter construction on cranes. Here comes. This is important. Boom. Right here. This is actually the Sister Ray Mako Cannon being under construction at Junin. Not Midgar, as some people assume. This is Junin. Now, what's really cool about this, in the history of Final Fantasy VII, President Shinra goes to oversee the construction at Junin of the Sister Ray Mako Cannon, and while he's there, the rebel anti-Shinra group Avalanche, tries to assassinate him. So that's kind of cool. Of course, they don't succeed, but they do take control of Junin. Now, let's go ahead and continue on.
Floating sky. The memory of the star that threatened all burns eternal in our hearts.
Okay. Now, I let the narrator talk there because he talks of the star that burns, the memory of the star that burns eternal in our hearts, and we looked upon a foreboding sky. What he is referring to is the calamity Genova, and then because she fell and brought just chaos and destruction upon the world, and she's Genova, okay? And then that back in the beginning of history of Final Fantasy VII, with the Cetra who came to this planet to cultivate life, there was Genova that came and brought destruction. So that's some pretty cool stuff. Right here, you see the highways going through Midgar right now, and if you can see, Route 17 actually leads to Calm. So that's kind of cool. Worth mentioning there, as maybe this is going to open up. I don't know, maybe an open world. If you're, the bike mission where you're escaping from Midgar, you might even be traveling on these roads here. So that's pretty cool. Now we can move on. Right here, you see this is the slide, the playground that when you're with Ares acting as her bodyguard in Final Fantasy VII, you see Tifa being taken away. So this is where all that goes down. Also a pretty cool moment between you and Ares. So okay, now right here you see two kids playing with swords. The girl who went down the slide. Now two kids playing with the swords. My thoughts on this. You see, they're playing with what looks like Buster swords. Now people are assuming that maybe they're mimicking Cloud but no. What I'm thinking right now is back in the day that Sephiroth and Cloud used to be, or Sephiroth and Angeal used to be heroes in the Soldier, and I think they're mimicking and playing as Sephiroth and Angeal. Angeal used to hold the Buster Sword long before Cloud ever did, which was handed down to Zack eventually as well. They could be also mimicking Zack, but that's kind of cool. Now here's something that I am just kind of lost at. Now, this is obviously an explosion of Mako energy. It could represent the life stream. That green glow in the eyes definitely gives that away. But I mean, there's many events in the history of Final Fantasy VII that kind of deals with this an explosion of a Mako reactor or something like that. So this could represent any of that, but there's two things that I'm leaning towards a little bit, and that is could be symbolizing Genova, the calamity, and as they were talking about, looking upon a foreboding sky and stuff like that. But this also is a lot later on in the history of Final Fantasy VII. So I don't know if it's symbolism or if it's an actual event, but they obviously start to point at it. Right there, they point at it. You can see the kids in the background pointing at it, and staring at it. But I'm not too sure what that is. It could be the Mako #1 reactor explosion when Cloud and Barrett set that off. Now, if that is the case, I can explain the chain of events when we get to that point later. But in the foreground right now, you see the wilted flower. Now, this is a pretty cool symbolism, as the wilted flower is standing for the dying planet. And if you saw in her eyes, if it was a Mako explosion or if it's some kind of, the Mako reactors, you see that is draining the life from the planet. And here's the symbolism of the beginning of a dying planet. And the wilted leaf falls. Yoshinori Cotati coming back. He was the original director of Final Fantasy VII, but now he's going to be the producer. It's just great stuff. Great news. Okay. Mako reactors. This right here. These are Avalanche soldiers. Now, they're not your typical Biggs and Wedge Avalanche soldier. These are the beginnings of Avalanche when the Wutai War started, when Shinra wanted to build a Mako reactor on Wutai soil, and the Wutai did not like that, started a war with Shinra, and then that war ended, but Wutai developed a secret anti-Shinra organization called the Avalanche. This was the first Avalanche, and as you can see, the reason why I believe that these are the beginnings of Avalanche is because, first of all, they have guns and swords, and that's pretty Wutai based there. Also, here's some pretty cool information, that the Wutai, when they started Avalanche, one of their missions was to sneak into Sector 8 and blow up their Mako reactor. So what I think we're seeing here is that actually that piece of history where Avalanche was going to blow up the reactor in Sector 8, and the proof being they're in stealth gear. There's the helicopter. Now, Nojima, which is the scenario director originally in Final Fantasy VII, coming back for this one. So, I mean, hey, can't beat that.
That someday.
Now here we go. We're walking through.
Again.
Boom. Now, stop it here, because the flowers obviously represent Ares, the flower girl, and then you have the dark feather that is Sephiroth actually dropping into a puddle, and in the puddle you can see a reflection of what looks to be a one-winged angel. So yeah, the symbolism is on point in this scene, but I dig deeper, as you can kind of see that the flowers, yeah, they represent Ares, but Ares is also the last remaining Cetra. Now, I talked about them in the beginning of the video. The last remaining Cetra, and Sephiroth is, representing Genova, which is that calamity, the evil. And then you heard the narrator say that that someday they would return, and here's the return of Cetra versus Genova, the calamity. And it's kind of cool. That's what the Final Fantasy VII is basically all about. So it's kind of cool.
Perhaps it was no more than
There's Midgar, and I just stop it here because it looks freaking amazing.
wishful thinking.
Okay, Tetsuya Nomura coming back. That's amazing. We are in great hands. He was originally the character designer. He came up with all the designs for these characters, and they all looked amazing, right, guys? I mean, he did such a great job of diversifying the entire game to appeal to everyone, and hopefully that spirit continues on into the remake. But there he is, Nomura. We are in great hands, guys. There it is. The plates are fully developed. Now, throughout this video, I didn't mention it looked as if Midgar was constantly under construction, and yes, it was. In the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, from the beginnings of Crisis Core to all the way through, Midgar was under constant construction, where the plates, and here you can see the plates fully developed, and we're going underneath of them, and we're going to pan down.
But after the long calm,
into
there are now
the
the beginnings of a stir.
After the long calm, there is a beginnings of a stir. Now, the beginnings of the stir after a long calm, I guess I just repeated myself. What I think he means by that is Avalanche went away for a little bit. And after, Shinra kind of put an end to them for a little bit, Barrett, he loses his arm. During that event, he stumbles upon a Avalanche hideout. And he kind of brings that back. He brings Avalanche back for a second coming, and now I feel like he's kind of referring to the beginnings of a stir, because these are the guys that are protecting the planet. Avalanche are they're pro planet, anti Shinra, and the beginnings of a stir. This could be Barrett and Cloud, walking towards the train to begin their mission to head to this, Sector 1, where they're blowing up the reactor. But if we go back to the scene where the kid is staring off and we see that explosion, if that is the Mako #1 reactor exploding, well, excuse me, I think this right here is them walking from their hideout after blowing up Mako #1 reactor, and now they're heading towards the train to get on it to go do their next mission of blowing up the Mako #5 reactor, and that's where things go down. All right, so here we go, going down into the slums.
Reunion at hand may bring joy, it may bring fear, but let us embrace whatever it brings.
Okay, let the narrator talk there for a little bit. The reunion at hand may bring joy. It may bring fear, but let us embrace whatever it brings. Now, that's amazing. I think that as a double narrative, if that is even a freaking terminology, it is now. It should be, because I just made it up. A double narrative where he is speaking directly to us, the fans, and also the story itself. Now, let's touch on the story itself. The reunion at hand may bring fear, may bring joy. Now, once again, I think he's talking about the reunion of Avalanche and the protectors of the planet. Now, talking directly to us, he's telling us, guys, this announcement of a Final Fantasy VII remake, it may bring fear. First of all, it may bring joy. And oh yes, it did bring some joy. It brought a lot of joy. Yeah, I'm super freaking hype, and it will never cease until the game is, long after the game is released. It may bring fear for all those guys out there who are just like you're messing with sacred grounds right now, and Final Fantasy VII is, you don't mess with sacred grounds. This is for you guys. He's telling us, let us embrace whatever it is that it brings. Oh, and I have embraced it with open arms. Yes, I was about to break out into a Journey song, but I didn't. Now, okay, let's get to the best part. Walking through the slums.
For they
There it is. Okay, look, first of all, obviously, we know that's Barrett. The gun has gotten a lot longer.
are coming back.
Yes. There it is.
At last.
Cloud.
A promise.
Cloud, and just straight up true to form Final Fantasy VII outfit. I love it. The bolts on the shoulder pad, everything is there. But what I'd like to point out that I think is really cool is right here on the sword is that's classic Final Fantasy VII right there with the two holes. It's not like in Crisis Core where it looked like some kind of gold fancy design. I didn't like that, but this is the true to form Cloud Buster sword. So
has been made.
Oh, there it is. The logo. And then the remake sign. And that's all I wanted to see. That is it. I would have been okay if they just showed that final two segments, final two frames of this video. I would have been okay with that. But we got this whole trailer, and I've dug really deep into the trailer, and I hope you enjoyed as I went through this trailer and kind of gave you insight. Now, I mean, this is all my theory, obviously. It doesn't mean that I'm right, but hey, I kind of backed it up with some history of Final Fantasy, and that's kind of cool. So, I mean, thank you so much for watching. I'm super excited, and hey, subscribe now, because more Final Fantasy VII content coming at you. Thank you so much for watching.